I underestimated the impact of Chris Mack being out. And that's not to say that I didn't like, I think Chris Mack is one of the top 15, 20 coaches in the country. I mean, he's a really good coach. There's a reason why he was on everyone's wish list for a couple seasons in a row. And at the time he was the hire for Louisville to make. And so I don't have any doubt that he is, at his best, he is one of the top coaches in the country. But for some reason, I just kind of thought, with McMahon's implementing the offense, they'd be in good hands there. And Pegues knows the defense really well and has been alongside Mack for a few years, for a long time now. And they would be okay, that they would be 4-0 coming into this tournament and maybe drop both games, but maybe they'd be competitive down in the Bahamas. And I think I underrated how important it is to have your guy, your coach, your leader, the leader of the leaders, shouting from the sidelines, breaking down film. And the biggest thing I think is just knowing timeouts, having a game feel. I mean, Mike Pegues is doing this on the fly. He does not have prior head coaching experience at this level. And Mac, I mean, you can't undervalue and underrate how important it is to have game feel as a head coach and know when timeouts are needed, know who needs to come in and who comes out, know what kind of halftime speech to give. And, we're not around Pegues for the halftime speeches or anything like that. And I'm not putting any of this on him because he's put in a tough position. And I think he's a good young coach. And I like Mike. I'm just saying, I mean, I think it's a big deal when you don't have your head coach. And then on top of it, Jack, the practices I have seen, and, this goes back to when he was at Xavier too. I mean, Mac coaches the defense. Like I hate the coordinator thing. I know we kind of joked about it. I mean, I don't know what else to call it, but in addition to being the head coach, when they are coaching the pack line and they're coaching defense, Mac is the lead voice on it. And to not have him there, continuing to implement it after they had done it for a couple months leading up to the season, to not have him there correcting things after games, to not have him there reinforcing things that are important in the way that they do things. All of that, it's hard to quantify, but it just feels like there has to be a level of that that has impacted them, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people have talked about the offense a lot because that's, normally what gets, all the glitz and glamour, but they haven't been very good on the defensive end. They've been out-rebounded multiple games against, low major teams. And we know how important it is for Chris Mack, how much he values defensive rebounding, forcing tough jumpers and getting the defensive rebound, not giving up second chance points. And that's been problems against Furman and even Navy, a game that they won pretty handily. And you look at, some of the teams that they have coming up here. It first started with the Bahamas. Michigan State is a very rebound-heavy team. Kentucky's been mauling people on the boards so far, especially with Oscar Tshiebwe. So I mean,
that guy's been ridiculous.
Yeah, so I mean, you need to get drastically better. What's alarming is that was supposed to be a strength of this team when you bring back Malik Williams for his 80,000th year of college basketball. When you have Sam Williamson, who was a double-double machine at the end of last year, and the strength of the team was supposed to be, Withers, who was rumored as he could be gone in 6 months if he plays really well. Yep. Well, and the strength of this team was supposed to be the front court and rebounding and having all that size and all these different guys you keep throwing out there to be aggressive defensively and on the boards. And Louisville just hasn't been that yet. And obviously Mac has to be a big part of that because he makes $4 million for a reason, guys. I mean, that's why he's getting paid as much as he does to make these type of decisions. You're not paying a guy that much if it doesn't matter if he's not gone. And I think we did absolutely undervalue that because of the first 4 teams on the schedule, even though Furman, Navy are pretty good basketball teams. But people don't respect them because they don't have that name brand as someone like a Maryland or Michigan State or a Mississippi State would bring with it. But It absolutely matters, and we've seen just dysfunction. And again, it's almost like the David Padgett year, where Mike McGeese is just kind of thrown into a really tough spot, and you're not, David Padgett just wasn't Rick Pitino, and Mike McGeese just isn't Chris Mack. And when you're missing the head coach and you're paying all this money to, it's going to show more than we expected to. And I get it, the players are the ones making the plays and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, the coach has to decide who's in the game, and it's up to the coach to set the tone. And especially when you're working in 12, 13 scholarship players at the same time trying to figure out a rotation with 8 newcomers on the team that weren't on the roster last year, that was going to be a really difficult job for Chris Mack to do. Not to mention someone who's never been a head coach before and is trying to manage substitutions for the first time. And we've seen issues with that. People have talked a lot of the backup big men's like, oh, why is Sidney Curry playing like 15 minutes one game, nothing the next? Why does Roosevelt Wheeler not play for 2 games and suddenly Bob become a fan favorite in game 3 against Navy? It's the type of things where it's like, it's tough for him to try to manage all these minutes for all these different guys, especially when you're not used to doing that.
Yeah, it's a very tall challenge.
And that's something that could hurt Louisville down the line as well, when you've lost time now for Chris Mack to try to figure out those rotations that you figure he would have been trying to do if he was coaching these first 6 games.
Right. And here's the flip side to that. It could help. It could help, because here's the thing. People have been so frustrated with the way Mac's 3 previous teams finished the season. They took some lumps in February. I have a whole aside about that. Their schedule is always backloaded. It is so difficult in February and March. It's like you've got Virginia, North Carolina. All those games are always Duke. They're always in February. But here's my theory, Jack, is Mac coming back a little bit later, the offense, I think, will be in good shape by February. I think this was going to be more of a learning curve than we realized with the offense. And the defense, typically the team started to get more and more comfortable with the defense as the season progressed, and the offense was what kind of labored a couple of times, at least last year. Last year's offense was brutal, but I feel like there's still that potential there for them to figure it out.
Absolutely.
You've got a couple of guys who are not playing well, who you would assume will eventually be playing well. So there is that element of all of this to think about, that maybe this is the year that they actually do finish strong because they're rounding into form at the right time. But the competition is going to get more difficult.